It has to be hard to make a TV show based off a game that so many people are diehard fans of, because the viewers' expectations are most likely astronomical. Bravo! They did it again! They pulled it off! Bravo to whoever even worked an ounce on this TV show. When I tell you that I had almost no hope for this show, it would be an understatement. I didn't even watch it at first, but when I heard of the positive feedback it was getting on social media, I said, let me give this a try. And honestly, I was hooked. I was sitting here watching the show like I ain't never even played the game before. You can't blame me though, because literally every other video game adaptation that I've ever seen has been complete trash. Except the Sonic movies, I kinda like those. Even though they got backlash at first about the way Sonic looked, the power of social media nowadays is crazy. They got them to change the whole character. And you know, they did the same thing for the Last of Us TV show. They didn't like the character that they chose for Ellie, Bella Ramsey. Everyone was saying that she looked weird, which is so weird to me, like give the girl a chance. But she shut y'all up real quick when we saw her play on the show. That girl can seriously act. Her and Pedro Pascal are really phenomenal actors. As each episode went on, their acting progressed more and more, and they were better and better. There was so much that I loved about the show and some things that I didn't like so much. One huge change on the show was Bill's love story. Some people loved it, some people hated it. In the game, they did hint at Bill and Frank being some kind of lovers, but we never really got too much of it. In the show, there was a whole episode dedicated to their love. That episode was so sweet and it did get me emotional. I didn't cry or anything, but it did make me feel some type of way. The show really did this a lot, where they showed more detail into certain situations. At first when I noticed they were drifting away from the story in the game, I had my guard up and I was a little skeptical. They ended up proving me wrong pretty much every time. I was constantly invested. I ended up loving every time they did that because it always ended up giving me more context into certain situations. Even the scene where it shows the time Ellie was born. And can we talk about the scene where the Indonesian doctor told the army to bomb the city? Her acting was so great. Her movements and like every little thing that she did really showed how scared she was in that moment. Realizing that there is no cure for this and it'll probably spread more than anyone ever knows. She really deserved an Oscar. And the cannibal cults, oh my gosh. I don't know how they managed to make him even more creepy in the show than in the game, but they did. I think they duplicated just enough from the game to make everyone satisfied. They gave enough new material to keep the people who played the game intrigued. Most of the important parts of the game they duplicated identically. Like the scene where Ellie was telling Joel that she doesn't want him to leave. Or my favorite part,
tell them that Ellie is a little girl who broke her finger!
I love that part. They did a really good job with matching the sets to look just like it did in the game, with a lot of scenes. The first one I think of is the giraffe scene and the diner scene. I also loved how in the last episode they had Ashley Johnson play Ellie's mom. I didn't even realize at first, but she sounded like so familiar. I thought that was just a great little Easter egg. How they shot Joel's last rampage throughout the hospital was amazing too. It really showed his rage and we could truly feel that. Something I was kind of mixed about with the show was the fact that there were not a lot of infected to fight off. Which I understand. With it being live action, it's probably way harder to do. With all that like makeup and stuff, it probably takes hours. But you would think we would have seen at least a few more clickers and bloaters or something. Even the part where Ellie and Riley got bit, there was only one infected attacking them. In the game, there were like tens of those things, and it was a whole action scene. So I don't know if they were just lazy in that aspect or what. Another question that was running through people's minds is the show too woke? With the diversity changes they made to the cast, and they did a whole Bill and Frank love story, what do you guys think? It didn't really bother me, but do you guys think that they were trying too hard to be inclusive? Now on to the things that I didn't really care for on the show. The biggest one being not having those little interactions of them bantering back and forth, like this one.
Whoa, look. Fireflies. I mean, real fireflies. Did everyone have boats back then?
Got a 60-foot yacht.
Really?
No.
Sarcasm. Making progress.
This is what truly makes the game. It shows how their relationship progresses. I felt like it was until the last two episodes where I felt that they were really connecting. In the game, they were connecting pretty early on. Like in the show, Joel pretty much looked at Ellie as cargo. Then all of a sudden, he doesn't want to fail her. I'm like, whoa, plot twist. With that being said, a lot of details building these characters up was cut, making it a little bit harder to really immerse yourself. This was one thing that they changed for the worse. With that being said, I felt like the last episode felt a bit rushed as well. They cut the drowning scene, and again, other parts where the infected were involved. But I understand, it is a TV show, and they only had so much time. I just wish we could have gotten a little more. It would have made the show even better than it already actually is. The last thing I wasn't the biggest fan of is the fact that there were some parts, specifically in the beginning, where it seemed forced. For instance, I feel like Ellie in the show was trying a little too hard to be violent, and it came off as kinda cheesy. Luckily, as the show progressed, it did get way better. Other than these few things, I really did love the show, guys, and many other people did as well. I'm really nervous for season 2 because if you know, you know. Overall, they did a really good job. Everything was on point. Obviously, if I had to choose, the video game will always be better in these kind of situations. But for some people who don't play video games, this is a nice alternative. Trust me, there are some bad ones out there like The Witcher, Halo, Hitman, and many more. I'm glad to see that The Last of Us made it above the ranks. I know Amazon is supposedly coming out with the God of War TV show, and I swear if they mess this up, I'm gonna be so mad because God of War is one of my favorite video games, but fingers crossed. How'd you guys feel about The Last of Us TV show? Let's have a discussion about it in the comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Akay out.